Coming up on Live at 4, where your ballot goes after you vote in person absentee.
Madison's known for being a walkable town, but just how accessible are the polls to people on Election Day?
Plus, one of the top issues on voters' minds, how the issue of immigration affects real people in our state. Those stories and more coming up next on Live at 4.
It's no secret, Robertson is Wisconsin's aesthetic leader, but with results this natural, patients can keep it a secret if they want. Our secret to reducing stubborn body fat, Cool Sculpting Elite, the newest technology available. Book a free consultation to learn how Cool Sculpting is different at Robertson.
Shop from the largest selection of Chevy trucks and SUVs in Wisconsin at Bergstrom Chevrolet. All with Bergstrom's negotiation-free upfront pricing, including our exclusive 7-day price protection and money-back guarantees. Stop in or shop and purchase at BergstromChevrolet.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to News 3 Now's special election show, Battleground Wisconsin. Election Day is Tuesday, and more than 1 million Wisconsinites have already cast their ballots, but they won't be counted until Tuesday.
So what happens to them in the meantime then? If you voted early, you probably saw your ballot go into a red bag right there. It's the first step in the chain of custody if your polling place isn't at the town or village hall. From there, your ballot goes back to the clerk's office. Per Wisconsin law, your ballot gets stored in a secure location until Tuesday.
So 7 a.m. they start opening them, putting them through the machines and counting them. The names then go in the poll book. And that's been the process for a long time here.
If you want to track your ballot before Election Day, just go to myvote.wi.gov.
For people in Madison who are going to vote on Election Day, it's important to have a plan. Even though Madison is seen as a walkable city, only half of its voters live within a 10-minute walk of their polling place. And that's why it's so important to have a step-by-step plan in place before Tuesday that includes the time you're heading to the polls and how you plan to get there. To do that, look ahead at where your polling place is. We have an interactive map with your polling place online on our website at channel3000.com.
For voters with disabilities, the challenge of voting on Election Day can be even greater. Wisconsin provides accessibility audits to cities like Madison, where poll workers use a checklist to identify and address any barriers. If you have health issues, mobility issues, or a disability, you can vote curbside. You can do that by calling the clerk's office at the number on your screen. If you need someone to help you mark your ballot, you can bring someone with you or ask a poll worker. You can also use the Express Vote ballot marking device. For more information about that, you can find that on the City of Madison's website.
The day after Election Day, we likely won't have an answer about who is the next president. We may or may not, we don't know, but experts say Wednesday we might know how Wisconsin voted, but not the country as a whole. And even after the count is complete, we'll have to wait through potential recounts and legal challenges. That is especially true if the results do not favor former President Trump.
Lawyers are hired, the documents are written to bring legal challenges. Things like highlight the polls are open, claims of unfair or illegal assistance, questions about whether a minor imperfection in an absentee ballot can be overlooked or the ballot has to be discarded.
The Department of Homeland Security warned of potential threat actors exploiting claims of election fraud to incite violence, like we saw after the last presidential election. And if and when that happens, it's important to remember the Associated Press calls races when it's confident the candidates no longer have a path to victory. Their accuracy rate is more than 99.9%.
Still ahead, it's been a long week of campaign visits.
So our Will Keneally is sitting down with 2 political experts for one final panel before November 5th. That's when we come back.
You have a clear choice in this election. Senator Baldwin is a 38-year career politician. I'm a businessman and job creator. She supports taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants. I'll close the border. Tammy wants to put guys and girls sports in their bathrooms. I'll protect our daughters. Senator Baldwin abuses the political system. I'll fight the corruption. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. I'd be honored to have your vote.
I'm a steel worker. I grew up right here on a little family farm. Trump was here campaigning with Elon Musk. Now there's a prime example of who he keeps close. Donald Trump cares about his billionaire friends. He's just going to turn around and give them more tax breaks. But Kamala Harris is fighting for the working class. She'll make billionaires pay their fair share. That way working people get a fair shot. Elon Musk is voting for his money, and I'm voting for mine. And I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
We hold the most powerful tool to make democracy work for Black Americans, and that's our vote. Registering to vote takes less than 10 minutes. Help protect democracy. Go to myvote.wisconsin.gov to check your voter registration status. In-person absentee voting begins Tuesday, October 22nd. City of Beloit buses will provide free rides on Election Day. Let's be all in and vote on November 5th.
The kindness, the efficiency, the respect was amazing.
From start to finish, they will take care of you.
Everybody is just so kind and everybody's so cheerful. I just never worked with a company where everybody seems to get along and they're all happy to be working for Cardinal.
Cardinal is the place to go for any type of work that you need done around your home.
I never hesitate with family, friends, neighbors to recommend Cardinal, and nobody has come back to me and said I was wrong.
I, Kamala J.B. Harris, do solemnly swear.
Kamala swore an oath, but Kamala created crisis after crisis. Our troops murdered, an open border, crime in our streets, skyrocketing costs, assassination attempts, Americans abandoned during disasters, and we're on the brink of World War III. A broken oath and a broken America. Kamala can't be trusted in the Oval Office. Vote for President Trump and save America. Make America Great Again, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Are you struggling with back or neck pain due to herniated or bulging discs? Midwest Spine and Nerve Center may be able to help you get back to your active lifestyle with our non-invasive, drug-free treatment methods, including non-surgical spinal decompression, Class 4 laser, and more. Serving Madison for over 15 years, we've helped hundreds of patients alleviate their back or neck pain. If you're looking for an alternative back or neck pain relieving therapy, call us to schedule a complimentary, no-obligation consultation today to see if we can help you get out of pain.
When did you know Eric Hovde was wrong for Wisconsin?
Well, that's easy. When he said that people like me were going to die soon, so we shouldn't be able to vote.
Almost nobody in a nursing home is in a point to vote.
When Hovde said overweight people should pay more for health care.
When I heard he wants to raise the retirement age.
When I heard he's completely against abortion.
I am totally opposed to abortion.
Now we know what's wrong with Eric Hovde. He's not for us.
I'm Tammy Baldwin, and I approve this message.
The week before Election Day in Wisconsin has been filled with visits from presidential candidates, their campaign surrogates, and we've had a lot of news, too.
Yes, we have. To break through all of the noise, our political reporter Will Keneally sat down with two experts for one final Battleground Wisconsin panel ahead of Tuesday.
I think Harris started out winning the week, and then I'm not so sure. So, you know, Trump had the rally at Madison Square Garden. He got a lot of bad press over that. I thought Harris gave a great speech in front of the White House, a nice contrast between Trump's message and her positive message. And then Joe Biden didn't help the situation with his comment. I think it was a gaffe. I don't think he meant to say what he said, but he said it. And so since then, we've been talking about Joe Biden again. And so that was unfortunate from a Democratic perspective. So I'd say it was a mixed week. Started out well for Democrats, probably finished up a little better for Trump.
Here they are, you know, just trying to tread water, and Biden comes out and says, you know, the Trump supporters are garbage. I mean, it just blew it out. And I think, unfortunately for Harris, that dampened her speech a little bit. And, you know, we're at a point now where those speeches, those rallies, those messages, whether they were what she delivered in Madison, you know, to the Lang crowd, or what Trump and Favre delivered in Green Bay, it's really just keeping your supporters and your base in line and keeping them pumped. I mean, they got to keep that. They just got to keep them just at a fervor between now and Election Day to get them to vote.
But this is why I think Biden's comments were so damaging. If you look at what Trump's been doing the last few weeks in his closing arguments, I think he's trying to get out low propensity, mostly young male voters, guys who normally wouldn't show up for any election. And I'm not sure how much progress he was making in that regard. But then Biden comes along and he makes this comment about garbage. And that's going to be used to try to motivate those guys to get to the polls. So I think Biden obviously unintentionally really fed into to Trump's strategy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I don't know that it was unintentional, because if you watched what he said and how he said it, it was what he was feeling. And I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, but it just politically, it was about the worst thing anybody on the Harris side could do at this point in the game, because they have so little time to go over and try and correct it, rectify. Just as the Trump campaign was trying to, get rid of the comedians thing. They got that, they got to ask for the vote, and they're still trying to get these undecideds to make a decision.
And so we saw Trump lean into that at that Green Bay rally, wearing the orange vest during the entire rally, taking questions from reporters from that garbage truck. You've run campaigns. Is that how you would advise a candidate to kind of turn the page on that kind of stuff?
I think sometimes you have to catch people's attention, and sometimes maybe it's just the optics. That was a great optic, because I mean, how else, if somebody did miss the comment on garbage, and they see Trump in a garbage truck, they're going to go, what's he doing in a garbage truck? So optically, it was great. Message-wise, you didn't have to do much. Very clever, got the point, and it moved him on to his rally, brings in Favre, and so I think he helped get past it. It was good.
Both teams are playing the same game. They're both going to their base. This is a time where you sort of aren't trying to convince anybody anymore. You're trying to get your base to the polls. And so obviously both campaigns are doing exactly that. I think they're both doing it pretty effectively. And it's just a question of who does a little better. I'm going to give the edge to Harris simply because her voters are more committed. Trump relies on low propensity voters, a lot of whom are going to wait till Election Day. So I do think that gives Harris an edge.
When Harris has her events in Madison, Milwaukee, the big crowds, 13,000 at the Alliance Center, and big crowds in Milwaukee and vice versa, stuff like that. But I wouldn't read that as an overall posture in the state. I mean, she's going to the base, and she's got to have Madison, Dane County, Milwaukee turn out at 100%. They're going to need it, no question about it. Trump has managed to move around a little bit, even came to Dane County. And again, it's not so much the location of the rally, but it's the picture that's generated off the 6 and 10 o'clock news, what they're reading in the newspaper, what they're seeing on social media. And so, when you're planning an event like that as a campaign, you're really thinking about multiple things. To Dave's point, you got to get to your base because they've got to turn out to vote. But you still got to, is there any way that we could draw something to somebody who's sitting out there going, God, I just don't, 4 days left, I just don't know where to go on this thing. And again, the optics that they may have to repair some damage or they want to set something up. But right now, 4 days to go, it's all about turning out your base. And if you can turn one extra vote, you have to, because that's what's going on in this state.
When we talk about October surprises, this Wednesday we saw the latest Marquette poll. Any surprises in that that are shocking you at all?
Not a single one. The poll director, Charles Franklin, he said, don't be surprised if Trump wins. Don't be surprised if Harris wins. So, I mean, we're at that point. Take out your favorite shiny quarter, give it a toss. I think that's going to be your best prognosticator, at least in Wisconsin, of what the results will be.
I actually had a different reaction, and I came away optimistic about Harris. So much so, I think you guys should have me drug tested on the way out of here. Because it may be irrational optimism. But there were a couple things that I found encouraging. One was, it looks to me like Harris will go into Election Day with about a 200,000 vote advantage through the early voting. That means Trump has to make that up and then some on Election Day. The forecast is for rain on Election Day. I said earlier, Trump's voters are lower propensity voters.
Yeah, I don't think you can assume that the Trump voters are low propensity. They are about as jacked as I think the Harris voters are. If you look at the enthusiasm factor in the polls, and as it has been all the time, the Trump voters, Republican voters have always been high. The Harris voters have come up. I think the the real issue in that poll was what we've known all along is the gender gap and how strong it is for the gender gap of women supporting Harris and how strong the gender gap of men supporting Trump is. The other issue, the other interesting thing is the profile then of the two parties and the voters, you know, is driven somewhat by that gender gap. In that sense, again, I think because this race is so close, you go into it relatively even. I don't subscribe, Dave, to the Harris having 200 votes in the bank because of early voting. You hope so if you're a Harris voter, but I think there's still a lot of undecided out there. I think we're going into Election Day relatively even, Stephen. I do think that she's up a point or so. And if you've looked at all of these polls and all of the prognostications and all the counts out there, she could be up 3 points. She could be down 3 points. So, I mean, and it's not just Wisconsin. You're looking at Pennsylvania and Michigan. The three states are really having all the action in the northern part of the country. That's pretty much where this race is. You know, if you can get 5 votes going in ahead of time, I'd say you're doing pretty well.
Thank you, Will, and Mayor Dave and
Brandon,
yeah. Thank you. Will be joining us on election night as well. A Sun Prairie man who served as the U.S. ambassador to Norway has published a book about his experiences and a more hopeful era in politics.
Tom Loftus' memoir, Mission to Oslo, recounts the 4 years he served as a diplomat under President Bill Clinton.
Before that, Loftus was the longest-serving Democratic Speaker of the State Assembly. He served from 1977 to 1991. And with days to go before the election, we thought this would be a good time to talk about bipartisanship and diplomacy.
Yeah.
Tom Loftus, welcome to Live at 4. Good to see you.
Hello. Thank you. Good to see you too, again.
Congratulations on the book. It is a good time to talk to someone like you because with just days to go before the election, you came from an era where legislators on both sides of the aisle actually liked each other or at least disagreed agreeably. And the contrast with our politics today could not be more stark.
Well, you are right, and it starts with the fact that we were civil. In other words, no one was the enemy. And the other sides or the other person's opinion or policy belief was not wrong, it's what they believed. And so this was an era when Tommy Thompson was the minority leader and I was the speaker, and then he was the governor and I was the speaker. And we were friends, very good friends, and now we see each other all the time, and we're kind of asked to explain, well, why was it better then than now? And the word friendship means a lot.
Yeah. I think people miss those days. It seems like it.
Well, they do. I mean, my term in office is looking so good in hindsight.
Yeah, of course.
And it has to do with my successors, I suppose. But Governor Thompson and I are often called on to do sort of a dog and pony show to explain. We traveled the state together when I was the speaker and he was the minority leader, to every college and university in Wisconsin because we were deciding on the future. Well, one event, he got up and gave my opening remarks and I gave his. No one noticed the difference.
Really?
Although someone did come up to me and say I was sounding a lot lot than I used to.
That's interesting.
How about that?
What an experience.
So I thank Tommy quite often that I lost the governorship to him, and as the book says, I end up dancing with the Queen of Norway.
Let's talk about the book.
Yeah.
What an incredible adventure and experience you had. The cover of the book is you dancing with the Queen. You served as the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Norway for 4 years under President Clinton. And you talk about all of your experiences, which were remarkable. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to write the book. I know it's been a labor of love for quite a long time.
I had shipped home with me about 20 boxes of personal papers. 4 years ago, I opened the boxes. In there was the schedule of my daily life for all 1,461 days. So I had the raw material in front of me, not just the schedule, but visitors, dinners, the menus of the dinners, who sat next to each other at the dinner, every plane, train, car, ferry, and automobile ride I was ever on.
You need to be a scrapbooker.
Yeah, so, and I did keep a diary of notes. It's chronological. It's the 4 years of 1993 to 1998, the most optimistic time of the 20th century for the United States and Europe. The Soviet Union was gone. There was a new democracy in Russia, very shaky. Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary were free from Soviet communism. And some things like Nelson Mandela was now out of jail. He came to Oslo to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. I had tea with him, which I explained in the book. It had nothing to do with the Peace Prize. It had to do with President Clinton's position on tariffs in South Africa. And it's a good story. It's a very good story. It also is a book that tells what it is to be an ambassador, what you do every day. I have everything in here, including my salary, the chef, 3 maids, a driver, a guard, what you do every day. And the other story I tell, and I tell many, is that the king and the queen had only been the king and the queen for about 6 months when I arrived. So on their first official state visit to the United States, I was their escort. We had a state dinner in the White House, but we started in New York at the Waldorf Astoria. In the ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria, my job was to toast the king and the queen on behalf of the president and lead the queen in dancing, which was fine when it was a waltz. But the band broke into this sort of boogie-woogie, jitterbug, foxtrot thing, and she did not let my hand go. And we were staying out there. Well, I dragged up every move from the high school prom I could remember, and we survived. But it was a great event, and the state dinner was the king coming back to the White House for a second time. When he was a 6-year-old boy, the Nazi Germany invaded Norway in a surprise invasion. They tried to capture the king and the crown prince. The wife of the crown prince and the 3 children, including this king, escaped to Sweden. Franklin Roosevelt sent a ship for them because they weren't safe in Sweden. They came to the White House, and they stayed in the White House when they arrived with Roosevelt, who helped this 6-year-old boy with his homework. And the king told the story at the state dinner of his most vivid memory is standing behind Roosevelt at the 4th inaugural in 1945.
Oh, Tom, so, I'm so sorry. We need so much more time. We could talk about this all day. Mission to Oslo is the book.
Pick it up. It's great. A lot of great stories. Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you, and great to be back here.
Good to see you, Tom. Thank you so much.
We'll be right back.
I'm Joan Balwig, and I'm here to set the record straight. I support birth control, the life and health of mothers, extending postpartum care, and fertility treatments, including IVF. I'm Joan Balwig. I have always fought for Wisconsin moms, and I always will.
Mattress Marathon is back and bigger than ever at Ashley. Save up to $1,000 instantly on top mattress brands. Queen mattresses starting at just $167, plus 5-year special financing with nothing down. But hurry, the biggest mattress savings of the year won't last. Only at Ashley.
I know 20 of you and you're rich as hell. We're going to give you tax cuts?
I'm sick of these billionaires always getting the tax breaks while working people get screwed. Trump is a reverse Robin Hood. He wants to steal from the working man like myself and give it to the rich. Kamala has a plan to end price gouging and make life more affordable for working people because she fights for us. I'm Steven. I'm not rich as hell, and I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad. When I was 27, I was diagnosed with MS. That's life-altering news. I had to prioritize my health and start taking medication. Back then, these cost $6,000 a year. Now the generics cost 5 times that. Senator Baldwin claims she's fighting to lower drug prices, but she's taking millions from Big Pharma and works for them. I'm not taking their money. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. I'll fight the corruption and lower drug prices because I've lived it.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion, yes or no?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
And the punishment is real. Women denied care, unable to get pregnant again, traumatized, scarred for life. Young women who didn't need to die. Now 1 in 3 women live under a Trump abortion ban. And if he's elected, everyone will.
There has to be some form of punishment.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
This is a hallway. Doesn't evoke much feeling. But to those facing cancer or a complex condition, it feels like relief. Because all the doctors, treatments, and technology you've been fighting to find, they're all right here, under one roof, connected by hallways instead of highways. East Park Medical Center, coming soon. UW Health, remarkable.
Don't miss the 35th Annual Winter Art Fair Off the Square, November 9th and 10th at the Monona Terrace Convention Center, featuring over 100 Wisconsin exhibitors with a wonderful selection of ceramics, paintings, glass art, wood, jewelry, and much more. Place your bids at our silent auction Saturday only. Children will enjoy the Young Collector's Corner. Buy local for the holidays. The Winter Art Fair Off the Square. Put it on your calendar today.
Ashley's Black Friday event starts now. Get the guaranteed best prices of the year store-wide. Save even more on clearance and overstock, up to 60% off, and up to $300 instantly on doorbusters, plus special financing for 5 years. Only at Ashley.
Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Kieski's backers want to ban natural gas to heat our homes, driving utility bills through the roof. That's Kieski's record, expensive and extreme.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be on your ballot this Tuesday.
Exactly 1 week before Election Day, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected an emergency appeal to remove Kennedy from the ballot in Wisconsin.
On August 23rd, RFK Jr. dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed former President Donald Trump. But by then, the deadline for independents to get off the ballot had already passed. Kennedy had tried to get off the ballot anyway.
But on September 16th, a Dane County judge denied his request to be removed, a decision that Kennedy appealed.
In turn, the state's Elections Commission asked the Wisconsin Supreme Court to rule whether Kennedy would remain on the ballot. And on September 27th, the court ruled against him.
Kennedy took one final chance to stay on our state's ballot by taking his case to the nation's highest court, where he was again rejected.
In recent days, former President Donald Trump has said he wants to put Kennedy in charge of health, specifically women's health. RFK Jr. is also reportedly asking for access to federal health data to prove his false claims vaccines are unsafe. Now, his ultimate goal, to get them off the market during a second Trump administration.
Well, still ahead, we're going to sit down with the director of the Marquette Law School poll.
What his final poll before Election Day tells us about women in the state of Wisconsin.
During COVID, Joan Balwig took $500,000 in federal loans she never paid back. Then voted to block assistance to help other Wisconsin businesses grow. Joan Balwig, out for herself, not you.
Rebecca Cook believes our parents and grandparents should be able to age with dignity. In Congress, she'll vote to strengthen Social Security and Medicare by repealing the tax on benefits, lowering the eligibility age for Medicare, and allowing Medicare to negotiate lower drug costs so our seniors get the prescription drugs they need at prices they can afford. Rebecca Cook, a homegrown Wisconsinite who fights for what's right. Project 218 is responsible for the content of this ad.
I'm Elizabeth Grabby, and this is Home. Whether it was saving our family farm, starting my small business,
or standing up to utility rate hikes. I've learned to solve problems by bringing people together. And right now, we have some real problems to solve. Corporations jacking up prices and extreme politicians banning abortion. I'm Elizabeth Grabe, and together we can bring down costs and protect the right to make our own medical decisions.
Discover a level of comfort you never thought possible. Discover stressless seating at the Century House. Designed to harmonize with your body's natural movements, it's the premier destination for relaxation and rejuvenation. Right now, take 10% off all stressless recliners, sofas, tables, and ottomans. The Century House, 3420 University Avenue in Madison.
Quartz takes a different approach to health insurance. We know every life well lived is a journey, and we're here to light the way at every step. That's why for 40 years, we've been alongside the doctors and hospitals who know what their communities need. Because they're a part of them. Because we're a part of them. There's a fire burning in all of us. Let's ignite it together. Quartz. Find your spark.
Next January, one of us will be president. If it's Donald Trump, he will wake up every day and stew over his enemies list. That will help no one. If I am president, I'll be focused on my to-do list for you, the American people. I'll cut costs by cracking down on corporate price gouging, make housing more affordable, lower taxes for middle-class families, and protect Social Security. I will focus on getting things done. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message. Let's get to work.
This is China, and this is Wisconsin. Joan Ballweg invested thousands of dollars in Chinese companies, but voted against using state funds to help grow companies here in Wisconsin. Joan Ballweg, out for herself, not you.
News 3 Now First Warn Weather is brought to you by Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor.
Discover a shopping and design experience as comfortable as the furniture. Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor. Schedule your free design consultation today.
Well, we are just days away now from election night, and the race for president in Wisconsin remains so tight, it's a flip of a coin.
The final Marquette poll before Election Day was released this week, and it shows voters continue to support candidates by narrow margins.
Charles Franklin is the director of the Marquette Law School poll. Welcome back, Charles.
Good to be here. One more time.
One more time. So what are we seeing with the presidential race this time around?
Oh, it's just incredibly tight. We have it at 50% for Harris, 49% for Trump, just a 1-point margin. Margin of error is 4 points. You know, we've done 7 presidential polls. Not one has been outside the margin of error.
Oh, that's interesting. And is that any change from your last poll?
It is a tightening. We had Harris up by 4 at the end of September, so it's definitely tightened. Other polling in the state shows the same thing. We're down to, on average, tenths of a point separating the candidates in the polling averages.
Interesting. Let's take a look at the third-party candidates that are still on the ballot as well, because what is it, the last 4 of the last 6 elections have been determined by less than 1% in Wisconsin, so that matters.
And in every one of those, the third-party vote total has been bigger than the margin between the 2 candidates. So it's theoretically possible that it tilts the race one way or another. In this last poll, we actually saw a little upturn to 9 points saying they would vote for one of the third-party candidates. That was up from 6 at the end of September. I'm a little surprised at that because normally the third-party vote goes down. So I think people should be a little skeptical about 9%. But if people don't feel good about choosing between the Democrat and the Republican, third parties do offer them an out.
And where are we at with the Senate race? Also a very close race that we've been watching.
This one has also tightened. We had Baldwin ahead by 7 at the end of September. It's a 2-point race now, 51 to 49 for Baldwin. We've also seen both candidates' images get a little more negative, product of negative advertising, I expect. And the images have shifted a little bit. Hovde's picked up a slight advantage on working to solve national problems, and Baldwin's advantage on looking after the interests of Wisconsin has tightened, though she's still a little bit ahead on that.
We've been talking so much about the gender gap, and you did some polling about that, about who women are favoring and who men are favoring. What did your latest poll show?
Yeah, it's a big gap. among women, women are 14 points more supportive of Harris than Trump. So Harris has a 14-point lead with women. Trump has a 12-point lead with men. That's a 26-point gender gap. When Biden was the candidate, it was a 21-point gap. So that's a 5-point increase as we've switched from Biden to Harris.
And what about 2016? You've looked at the gender gap over the last several elections.
It was actually higher in 2016. It was a 30-point gap, and it was 32 actually in 2020. I think part of this is that women are more likely to identify themselves as Democrats. Men are more likely to identify as Republicans. So part of the gender gap is built into that partisan difference. Then you get the candidates and the issues of a particular election that either expand the gap a little bit or contract it a little bit.
You know, we've had you on throughout all of election season, and I've asked this before, but I will kind of cap it off. With all of the momentum for the Harris campaign, that big switch up, did it end up making a difference in this race?
It really clearly changed who was excited about the campaign, the election. Democrats had been running 15 to 20 points behind Republicans in enthusiasm when Biden was the candidate. When Harris became the candidate, Democratic enthusiasm surged, eventually caught Republicans, and in this final poll is running almost 10 points higher than Republicans. However, Republicans are enthusiastic and became more enthusiastic as the fall came on as well. It's just that Democrats are a little bit ahead.
And with just days to go, how would you characterize where we are?
It is so close that I think the answer is no one should be surprised if Trump wins. No one should be surprised if Harris wins. The big surprise would be if either one of them won by 3 points. I think it'll be, once again, one of those 1-point race, maybe a 2-point race. But does it tilt this way or tilt that way?
The flip of a coin, as you said.
It is. It is.
We're in for a long week next week, I think.
Yeah. Do you think we'll know?
I think in Wisconsin we'll know by 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. It does take a long time to process the absentee ballots in Green Bay and Milwaukee, as well as Kenosha. But that probably will be done in the 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, but maybe as late as 4. I'm not planning to get a whole lot of sleep that night.
We'll put the coffee on for everybody. Charles, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Immigration has been front and center in this election campaign.
When we come back, a Wisconsin city has seen its population grow, and it's been in the national spotlight. We're visiting Whitewater to offer a glimpse of how it's approaching new citizens.
I've lost track of how many ugly lies Eric Hovde's told about me, and honestly, I've had enough. But I have faith in the people of Wisconsin. You know I've spent my career fighting to keep American jobs from going overseas, working to crack down on fentanyl and lower the cost of prescription drugs. No billionaire California banker could lie enough to change that. I'm Tammy Baldwin. I've dedicated my life to fighting for Wisconsin, and that's why I approve this message.
Brian Stiles says he's proud of his Extreme record. Extremists want to gut Social Security and Medicare, cut benefits for seniors, and raise the retirement age. Stiles proud to join them. And they push to ban abortion in Wisconsin, restrict birth control, and monitor pregnancies to prosecute women. Brian Stiles proud to be backed by them. Peter Barca is proud to put Wisconsin over party.
I'm Peter Barca, and I approve this message.
We know what Joan Ballwig wants to do. Ban abortion and birth control. That's it. That's her plan. Sarah Kieski is focused on bringing costs down, and she has real plans to lower the cost of healthcare and housing, prescription drugs, and to cut your taxes. So if you want a candidate focused on banning abortion and birth control, that's Joan Ballwig. For everyone else, there's Sarah Kieski. She's running for state senate to finally bring costs down.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
And the punishment is real. Women denied care, unable to get pregnant again, traumatized, scarred for life. Young women who didn't need to die. Now 1 in 3 women live under a Trump abortion ban. And if he's elected, everyone will.
There has to be some form of punishment.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Todd Novak is a compassionate and independent voice for us in the Assembly, but Elizabeth Grabe will tell any lie she needs to get herself elected. Grabe's dishonesty about Todd Novak is shameful. The truth, Todd Novak passed legislation protecting exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother, and voted to expand access to birth control, not ban it. It's time to reject the desperate and ridiculous lies from Elizabeth Grabe and her radical allies. We deserve better. Todd Novak for Assembly.
I'm running for the Senate because I love our country, but sometimes I don't recognize it anymore. What is right has become wrong, and what is wrong has become right. Politicians like Tammy Baldwin have led us down the wrong path. It doesn't have to be this way. We can lower the cost of food and medicine, close our border, and stop the flow of deadly drugs. Let's work together to restore the American dream and give our children a brighter future. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message, and I'm asking for your vote.
New at 5, Wisconsin takes center stage with both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump visiting again just days before the election. Our team coverage brings you what both sides are saying to sway those last-minute votes.
If you want more rain, there's plenty more in the forecast. Heavy rain is expected through Election Day Tuesday. At 5, I'll let you know how much you can get.
And ahead at 6, Dane County's budget is official, but there's no funding for Second Harvest Food Bank. We dig into what that means for the food bank and for families who rely on it to put food on the table.
Well, among some of the top concerns of voters this election season, immigration, and Whitewater is one area seeing a growing immigrant population.
Late last year, the city gained national attention due to a letter from the police chief asking President Biden for more resources to meet the growing needs there. I visited Whitewater to show you the reality of the situation right now and how the city is welcoming the population and also addressing certain challenges.
Like most smaller communities, Whitewater, Wisconsin is pretty middle of the road. If you look across the street, you might see a neighbor who is across the aisle.
I think it's always been pretty middle of the road. It's that the elections are usually pretty close. Pretty close.
Kay Robers has lived here her whole life, but at work, the on-site manager for the community space doesn't see politics, she sees people.
It warms your heart to know that you're able to supply these things that otherwise a lot of them wouldn't have.
The community space opened 5 years ago, and part of it includes a food pantry to help the food insecure. Robers says the need is going up. In 2019, it gave out 33,973 pounds of food. Last year, that number grew to 211,619 pounds. Robers says there are a few reasons. One, things are just more expensive, bringing in all sorts of families to the space. Two, Whitewater has also seen an increase in immigrants, mostly from Central America, like Bessie Antunes, who came here from Honduras 8 years ago. She describes what living there was like.
The truth is that one does not live very quietly because to start, there is no security.
Bessie says the people of Whitewater have been welcoming to her and her 3 children.
I just came here for a better life, lead a better life, and get more work because where we lived, there's not a lot of work.
City officials have estimated 800 to 1,000 immigrants have come to Whitewater between 2022 and 2023. Robers says places like the community space are trying to meet the need and welcome the new population.
Whitewater doesn't have an immigration problem. We're working with them, they're working with us, they're going to school, they're finding jobs. They're happy. It's a good situation.
Last year, a letter from the Whitewater police chief to the Biden administration addressed some of the challenges to serving a growing population and asked for more funding for more police officers and for the city to be better able to serve immigrants.
They weren't saying that it was bad that we had them. They were just saying we need help figuring out how we can work better.
The letter went viral, with politicians trying to politicize immigration here into a problem that is burdening city resources. City manager John Wydell says the reality is actually much different.
Not that there are no issues, but we have some very specific issues related to the language barrier and some specific types of call volume that we're seeing related to driving without a license.
Weidel is referring to instances of immigrants driving without licenses. As for the letter, he says it's led to outcomes the city was asking for, including a grant to help hire more officers and other funding to address staffing needs.
Senator Baldwin has made there's a direct appropriation to the city of Whitewater in the federal budget. Now that still has to go through reconciliation, but I believe that's an $80,000 appropriation that would go towards immigration liaison, which is something specifically that the chief was requesting.
As for Bessie, she says her experience has been pretty positive and most people are welcoming, but she's still faced challenges of her own. I asked her if there's ever been a time when people treated her differently because she speaks a different language.
Yes, there are some people that just try to intimidate you just because you're not from here and you don't know English.
Robers says there are other positives to having a growing immigrant population, including new businesses like this grocery store. In the future, Robers hopes the topic of immigration becomes less politicized, leading to more people crossing the aisle or even the street and meeting in the middle.
We just think about where we all came from. There isn't anyone here that wasn't originally from a family of immigrants.
As much as you can say Whitewater is representative of Wisconsin and the purpleness and the purpleness of the state, I think also we represent Wisconsin in that the median person, voter, whatever you want to call it, is generally concerned with helping their neighbor, right, and doing the right thing.
And still to come on Live at 4, the small detail on campaign signs that is sending a big message.
Will Keneally shows us the story of the union logo when we come back.
I'm Tara, a nurse here in Wisconsin, and my patients don't want politicians like Eric Hovde making their healthcare decisions. He means what he says about opposing reproductive rights.
I am totally opposed to abortion.
And there are forces in Washington who want to pass a nationwide ban on abortion. And if Hovde gets elected, I worry he'll support that ban that could turn nurses like me into criminals. We need to vote against Eric Hovde.
WIN Senate is responsible for the content of this ad.
Kamala backed Biden on everything. She supported his disastrous economic agenda, higher taxes on the middle class. Kamala backed his open border policies, and their weakness invited wars. President Trump fights for you. His strength kept us safe. Trump cut taxes for families. Prices were lower, and the border secure. But Kamala wants to double down on failure. Kamala broke it. President Trump will fix it.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Rebecca Cook believes our parents and grandparents should be able to age with dignity. In Congress, she'll vote to strengthen Social Security and Medicare by repealing the tax on benefits, lowering the eligibility age for Medicare, and allowing Medicare to negotiate lower drug costs so our seniors get the prescription drugs they need at prices they can afford. Rebecca Cook, a homegrown Wisconsinite who fights for what's right. Project 218 is responsible for the content of this ad.
We know what Joan Ballwig wants to do. Ban abortion and birth control. That's it. That's her plan. Sarah Kieski is focused on bringing costs down, and she has real plans to lower the cost of healthcare and housing, prescription drugs, and to cut your taxes. So if you want a candidate focused on banning abortion and birth control, that's Joan Ballwig. For everyone else, there's Sarah Kieski. She's running for state senate to finally bring costs down.
National Democrats have been a disaster. Higher prices, open borders, making our communities less safe. They can't run on their record, so they try to distract you by lying about abortion.
Here's the truth. I oppose a national abortion ban. Early in a pregnancy, women should have the right to decide. We should allow for exceptions. And finally, the people of Wisconsin need to decide this issue, not politicians in Washington. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message.
Growing up here in southeast Wisconsin, hard work and getting things done are in Brian Stiles' DNA. It's why Stile is recognized as a problem solver in Congress. He's fighting for Wisconsin families every day, combating high prices at the grocery store and gas pump. And Brian Stile is protecting Social Security and Medicare because you've earned it. Brian Stile, getting it done for southeast Wisconsin. Fair Shake is responsible for the content of this ad.
Next January, one of us will be president. If it's Donald Trump, he will wake up every day and stew over his enemies list. That will help no one. If I am president, I'll be focused on my to-do list for you, the American people. I'll cut costs by cracking down on corporate price gouging, make housing more affordable, lower taxes for middle-class families, and protect Social Security. I will focus on getting things done. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message. Let's get to work.
Welcome back. Union workers represent a crucial portion of voters here in Wisconsin and across the country.
Part of political campaign strategies is a small symbol. That means a lot to those voters. Our Will Keneally brings us a story of the union logo's use during election seasons.
Campaign yard signs and mailers. You'll see many of them this time of year. But one of the most important logos on the sign is one you might miss.
That's the union flag.
The union logo stamped on these signs signifies that whoever ordered the printings did so through a union shop. It's been a long-time fixture in Democratic politics.
This probably goes back to Franklin Roosevelt.
Even before the changes to unions in Wisconsin back in 2011, including the union bug on your signs was a strong signal to organized labor.
Because Roosevelt was the first really strong pro-union president. And one of the ways that a politician in that era could demonstrate their support for the labor movement was, after getting a union endorsement, to reciprocate by showing that they wanted to support the union movement as a whole.
And in Wisconsin, after collective bargaining changes led by Republican Governor Scott Walker, Mordecai Lee says it's become an even more important symbol. If a Democratic candidate didn't have it on their sign, for example,
what are they thinking when they see that?
Well, if it's by an opponent in a Democratic primary, they would scream bloody murder.
A Democratic candidate might even have to reprint their campaign signs to include the union bug. That's not necessarily something that you'd see on the Republican side.
And you do see Republican campaigns that do have the bug. That might change in different parts of the state depending on what print shop they happen to have in their town.
Former Republican strategist Brandon Scholes says, on the GOP side, campaigns may simply opt for their local print shop in their district.
You had a print shop that maybe you've been going to for years and years and years, and it wasn't a union shop, and it wasn't anything that registered.
And there aren't that many union shops left in Wisconsin. Budget Signs is just one of 2 union shops in Madison.
We're printing, 100, 200,000 signs for different candidates. We also do a lot of statewide races. So we're really lucky to get that business and be able to help them get their message out too.
That includes major statewide candidates like Tony Evers and Tammy Baldwin.
There's not a whole lot of us out there, so we do a lot of work nationwide as well.
As unions continue to play an important part in this election, the union bug will similarly play a role in the campaign literature throughout Tuesday and beyond.
The union bug remained powerful for a big portion of workers in Wisconsin, even with the fading of sort of blue-collar manufacturing.
That was our Will Keneally reporting. We'll be right back.
So let's get one thing straight. When Donald Trump talks about cutting Social Security and Medicare, it's like spitting in the face of America's seniors. We paid into these programs for our entire careers, and he would just cut them? Why? He wants to give another tax cut to the super rich, which they don't need. I know that Kamala Harris will protect our Social Security because she understands why it's so important for so many of us.
FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
Dare to compare. Bob's Renegade versus my competitor's similar set. Both have power reclining seats, USB ports, and a storage console. But mine is $700 less. See how much you can save when you dare to compare. In store or at mybobs.com.
I'm working harder than ever just to pay the bills and provide for my family. But here's what Kamala Harris thought my money should go to instead. Job training for illegal immigrants even after they commit crimes in America. Hotel rooms for illegal immigrants while our vets sleep on the street. Sex changes for illegal immigrants out of my pocket. Seriously, have these people lost their mind? Kamala Harris can never, ever be our president.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Kamala backed Biden on everything. She supported his disastrous economic agenda, higher taxes on the middle class. Kamala backed his open border policies, and their weakness invited wars. President Trump fights for you. His strength kept us safe. Trump cut taxes for families. Prices were lower, and the border secure. But Kamala wants to double down on failure. Kamala broke it. President Trump will fix it.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
The problem with Todd Novak? He voted with his extreme party leaders 100% of the time, like voting against lower prescription prices. And Todd Novak authored the law to ban abortion in Wisconsin, with no exceptions for rape and incest. Todd Novak is with the extremists 100%, and he's hurting Wisconsin. Elizabeth Grabe will defend abortion rights, get more police funding, and bring down costs. Elizabeth Grabe for Assembly.
Meet Sarah Kieski. You might see her walking around in her woke genius t-shirt. Radical, just like the groups that support her. Kieski supporters want to defund the police. Her allies want to give voting rights to illegals and make it easier for felons to vote. And Kieski is backed by a group that wants to let criminals out early. Want to know where Sarah Kieski stands? Just look at the company she keeps.
And that will wrap up Live at 4 for the work week. Brady's in the newsroom with more on what's coming up. Brady?
Monday on Live at 4, Joey's song is more than just a concert. We'll show you how a partnership with the Epilepsy Foundation of Wisconsin could help save lives of those living with epilepsy. Hey, thanks for watching today. We hope to see you back here on Monday. News 3 Now at 5 starts right after this.